There's something about standing right here and looking out over the fields of crosses and then beginning to understand what sacrifice means, what the cost of freedom really requires. If you look around here, all the people who are attending who are alive and well, you can multiply that by 20 and probably still won't equal the number who were buried in the cemetery here. These young men, the first several waves, knew that they would die, but they are willing to accept the challenge. They are willing to accept the charge to do their part in preserving liberty and freedom for the world. And they did what they were asked to do. One of the things that I love about this program is we bring together generations of people. We have the greatest generation represented by these two great veterans, but we also have their children and their grandchildren. All of us are the beneficiaries of the service and sacrifice that was rendered by them. 20 years ago, I had the opportunity to be here, and I met with a dear friend of mine, Hans Hooker, who brought me up on this platform, and he gave me 3 items. He gave me a French flag, he gave me an American flag, and then he gave me a stone. Well, I understood what the flags represented, but I didn't understand what that stone represented. The stones, by the way, are here on the surface of this platform, and hopefully you'll get a chance to come up and see this. And there's a reason, there's a purpose for that. 79 years ago, the Allied forces prepared for just about any event that might happen. You can imagine the brain trust sitting around the table saying, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And they crossed it off the list and they were prepared for it. Mr. Hooker reminded me, he said, there was one thing they did not prepare for. As they stormed up the beaches of Normandy in their boots with their hard rubber soles, there were little stones covered in moss that our soldiers slipped on as they tried to make the approach up the incline. He said that thwarted the effort. They would slip and fall, and many of them lost their lives because of these little stones that they slipped on. Now those stones are right here embedded in the surface of this great memorial as a reminder to each of us that oftentimes in life there are little things. There are little things that we have difficulty with that we find ourselves struggling to overcome. But as we overcome those little things, before they become great things, our lives can be smooth, we can be unified, we can come together and be made stronger. That happened as a result of that difficulty. We lost many, many lives, and the surface of this memorial is a reminder of that. Those little things that we often let get in our way. I love the poem, just a tiny little minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. We all have the choice to make good decisions or bad decisions as we go through life. I hope we can learn from our history makers. The reason we bring young students back to the places where history was made is because we want them to step out of the classroom, away from the textbooks. I love that, that's perfect timing. Away from the textbooks and witness. You can't read about World War II bombers flying over your head in a textbook and understand what that means. But if you're in the place where it happens, that's embedded on your hearts and souls, and that's why it's so important to be here. We're teaching tomorrow's leaders the lessons of the past, and they learn those lessons best by being present, by being here, by showing up, and then being willing to work, being willing to serve. I also hope that if we don't take the opportunity to serve ourselves, that we commit ourselves to serving those who do serve. At this time, I'd like to make a special presentation. And in the spirit of uniting generations, I'd like to invite a couple of our youth to come forward, a few of our youth, representatives of the Dutchtown High School Marching Band, and also one of the young members of MHA Nation are going to help me present a History Maker medallion to our two veterans. This History Maker award is presented to one who represents the spirit of America through selfless service and whose influence affects positive change in the world. If ever there were history makers, you're looking at them right now. And so we're going to ask them to make that presentation. That's really what it's all about, isn't it? The beneficiaries of the service and sacrifice recognize that, and they've made that presentation. We thank them very much. And one last thing, by the way, there's a reason the statue that you see in front of you, or behind you if you're on stage, is here, is because it's a reminder of the spirit of American youth. You can imagine 79 years ago when these men were called home, and the spirits represented here, the spirit of American youth rising from the waves. Well, the future of our great nations are in good hands with these youth. I have great confidence in them and their ability. They're directed by committed teachers and directors and leaders who will educate and inspire them, and we're so grateful that they've been here with us today. Thank you all for joining us.